There are two races of human beings, not one and not many. This position can be proven, logically and biblically. It is the only plausible position to hold and the only position that is validated by the results. To make the point clear, if you hold to any other position than the two-race position, you cannot understand reality. But the doctrine of the two races is about much more than simply two culturally distinct groups of people. These two races, as said, are culturally distinct, but the differences between them are not just about the institutions and mores they have created as persons. These two races inhabit two distinct realities. It is easier to demonstrate the truth of this from the Bible than to demonstrate it logically. However, both options are possible. What has prohibited this position from being the norm is that the distinct quality has not previously been identified. Yet we embrace the idea in normal talk. Most of our politics and economics, not to mention religion, contain a duality. The right and left is a tacit agreement that there are two distinct political and economic viewpoints. Despite the talk about centrist views, there is really not clear middle position. But what really complicates the issue is that these political and economic extremes are not truly opposites and exist to divert our attention to the true bifurcation. Even the division between atheist and believers in God is not what really divides us. Yet, we do see some truth in the divisions we have discussed. Before we reveal the factor that divides humanity into two distinct races, think of the division between rich and poor. The division is of course artificial, and there is no clear line that denotes poverty nor one that unequivocally defines the wealthy. Indeed, the line is more of a huge swath of people who occupy the middle rungs, being neither very rich nor unbearably poor. All of these ways of dividing people are artificial. Rich and poor, right and left, believer and unbeliever are groups defined by humans and change according to how we choose to define the members. But there is a division that is not artificial and not subject to subjective modifications or changes in perspective. This is the division God created when He created reality, so it is a moral and logical separation. This division is the same one that divides God and Satan and good and evil. Man was made in the image of God. He is a creator. But people are born of the devil, and the devil is a liar and a destroyer. But one cannot destroy what has not yet been created. So evil is not created. Evil is the antithesis of creation. There are then two groups of persons tied to whether they are creative or destructive. However, we can drill down further than this, because creative persons add value to the things of God. God is not constrained by logic. He can be what does not make sense logically to us and do what might not make sense to us, but in so far as how the world is constructed, He created it logically so that we can understand it. What we cannot do is add to what has been created. We cannot remove anything that God created. So God's creation is a fixed absolute. However, we can alter the configuration, both good and bad. We can add value to the world, and we can lessen the value of what exists. This is our choice. As we ought to note, this is two options, and every choice we make either adds or subtracts value. Interestingly, despite the world being designed to maintain life, it is not ideally suited to human life. Mankind living in a state of nature lives a life that is nasty, brutish and short. This is the level of existence called subsistence culture. But many cultures find it inconvenient to do more than the minimum necessary to survive. They do not add value to the world because they consume all that they produce, and much of what they consume is obtained directly from nature. This is understandable. Statistically, a family member can and will do more than others because he or she will still reap considerable rewards from the work they do. If a man brings home a good meal and the wife spends much time and labor in preparing the meal and the house to make it a comfortable place to eat and reside in, the pleasures of seeing one's family fed more than makes up for the labor involved. However, this calculus changes the more numerous becomes the group benefited and the more distant relationally they become. A man has a hard time caring for his own family and the families of 10 others. When we get to 100 families, the work of one man, no matter how dutiful the work is prosecuted, does not impact the outcome much. In other words, if there is a community in which everyone does the minimum, the efforts of one person will not have much impact on their lives, as the work of one man shared between dozens or hundreds is made insignificant by the degree of the division. The crucial element in any system of economic development is the ability of the worker to claim and retain his earnings. If a group wishes to civilize, the first thing that must happen is that the individual is able to work for himself and himself alone. But how is this to be done? This is the dilemma of the age. It is a paradox that has existed from the dawn of time, and mankind has never solved it. Obviously, a person can work hard and improve his lot. But how is he to retain what he produces when even nations that prosper and do well are overrun and ruined by violent but jealous neighbors? We do not give the command to look at the beam in your own eye before looking at the straw in your brother's eye, the serious attention it deserves. Because if we would all look at what we do or not do rather than at what others have and do, we would all prosper to a greater degree. Jealousy of what others have prevents us from doing our best, whilst fear of what others may do if we get too far ahead of them economically, prevents others from being as effective as they would otherwise be. This is where the races divide. There are the ones who work and only want what they have produced and have a right to, and there are those who think everything is publicly owned and everyone has a right to everything. Only these people ensure they never produce anything more than they have to. These people always want to turn a profit. They want to gain an unearned increase, and they do this in many different ways. The only way they do not try and earn wealth is by working for an hourly wage. Yet, encouraging people to work for an hourly wage is the only way economic development can occur. All the entrepreneurs and speculators are useless without the people who do the real work. There cannot be any confusion. A person either pays his or her own way, or not. Even if in this deceptive we do not possess the bookkeeping to calculate the economics of a person's contributions and costs, the figures remain real, and for the most part, we can see which people are parasitic and which assets. It is through living as the Bible requires, doing all that Jesus has commanded us to do, living by the golden rule and paying the worker what he is worth, that ensures we are productive persons and are bound on earth to the church. Work binds us together. Greed tears us apart. However, until we build a theocratic economy and implement our theological rights, we will not have the data we need to clearly delineate one race from the other. Until we do this, we cannot separate out from that other race and that other destructive way of life, and until we can do this, this other race will continue to corrupt us and exploit us.